Welcome everyone. I'd like to declare the ordinary meeting of the Warrandyte Council for April open. Calling for apologies. We have in front of us apologies from Councillor Taylor, Councillor Williamson and Councillor Beach. Those hopefully that I'm aware of. Everyone else appears to be here. Someone like to move that those apologies be accepted? Councillor Derrick, Councillor Walker. Put that all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the minutes of the ordinary meeting held 25th of March, our last ordinary meeting. Someone happy to move those minutes? Councillor Walker, Councillor Sturdy. Councillor Walker.
I'm happy to move those minutes. Thank you.
Any further comments, information sought? We'll put that. Being the case, put that all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 4 on our agenda, the disclosures of interest. Does any councillor have an interest in which they need to disclose? Nothing there. There's no need to put that. We can just move on. Nil. In regards to mirror minutes, there are nil. Moving on to the reports, item 6, the reports of the committees. The first of those, the nominal those is meeting the Mannix Committee held on Tuesday 13th and Friday the 16th of April. So there were 2 Mannix meetings. Is someone happy to move those together?
Well, they're joined together
anyway. So yeah, so we just move them as one. Yes. So we're moving that one. Councillor Irving had to move that. Second, Councillor Sturdy. Councillor Irving.
I'd like to firstly thank the General Manager for thorough reporting on the Mannix meeting, and in particular just clarify where it says it's in the Executive Office Matters 4.1, it's on page 2. Where it says full and complete handovers under 4.1.5, what does that mean?
Well, what happens is that certain parts of the organisation are responsible for constructing a project. They're not ever going to be, most of the time, responsible for the project. Another part of the organisation. So at the very beginning, everyone should be involved, actually making sure that the user and the operator knows what they're going to get. Then in the end, you hand over, you commission everything, and you have everyone trained to actually operate the thing properly. That's what it really means.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's something that we need to have in place with all the new infrastructure occurring, as in swimming pools, splash parks, sewage treatment plant. If there's a continuity of people knowing what's going on, then if something does go awry, or people understand exactly how it's built, how it operates. It will just make operations after build that much smoother. That's what we're really aiming to achieve. Thank you. Are there any further comments, questions, information sought regarding the minutes of the Mannix Committee, those 2 meetings? Councillor Walker.
I was just wondering, health and development, 4.4.2, change of staff at the waste depot. Maybe that's, I know there's a meeting coming up soon, maybe it's discussed there, but it says waste depot work instead of just supervising.
So this is on page 10.
Just at the point.
Councillor Walker, sorry, I missed the query.
It's wondering change of staff at the waste depot. It says the waste depot work instead of just supervising. So there's things going on at the...
That's correct. What's actually happening is the people, to my knowledge, the people who might be in a small group who are doing the days other than what the normal waste depot supervisor, they are probably only just supervising to make sure the public are actually doing things right, instead of physically doing much more very similar type work than what the normal officer does. And that's why it's just much better to be focusing both have a waste attendant who's on the days other than Larry, and they know not just, let's just make sure that people are tipping in the right locations, they're actually doing some other working as like a team out there.
Are they employing a new person?
We're working towards that, and so the Parks and Gardens staff and the town crew, it's only Parks and Gardens, isn't it? But the town crew, to go and concentrate on town crew and Parks and Gardens work. Yes.
I agree. That's a good way to go. Yeah.
And from what we gather, it's the type of work that they much prefer not to be doing.
We get someone new to do.
So I've started the talk rolling with both the supervisor out there, the manager health and wellness, got that work to do, and even having a good discussion with Larry to actually perhaps have a better week for him, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, instead of completely can't go away anywhere because you've got other days and days off in between.
Okay, thank you.
Any further information sought? Questions before we move on and put those minutes of the managed committee meeting? Nothing further? Put that. But before that, I would like to commend the general manager for the degree of information that's now in our business paper. We really gives us much more opportunity as councillors to be aware of what's actually happening, and I'm grateful for that.
And you like it in the dot point form.
I like to be able to, yes, I don't want,
Imagine that.
I don't particularly like reams of paragraphs of information. I want to be able to read it fairly quickly.
I also think that, I don't know who's put it in, the general manager or someone else, the acronyms.
Yes.
Sometimes didn't know
Yes.
who it was or what it meant, so that was a big help too, thank you.
There being no further comments, questions, we'll put the minutes of the managed meeting, all those two meetings. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to reports of the delegates, and the first of those is the actually the minutes of the Urana Joint Organisation of Councils meeting. I'm happy to move those. Looking for a seconder, Councillor Barrett. Look, I think the information we've discussed, the information that actually occurs in these minutes, although they're really very much a summary of the meeting. And just foreshadow, there is another meeting in Urana Joint Organisation of Councils sometime in 12th of May. I think it's in Gilgandra. Councils will be aware that we've submitted our letter of resignation to that organisation. We did, for your information, did speak to the Peter Evans, who's our local Office of Local Government representative, and Tim Hurst, who's the Director General of the Office of Local Government, or Deputy Assistant Secretary in charge of that area, about foreshadowing that was going to occur, and
A political decision.
a big political decision about. I think there's some degree of concurrence that joint organisations were something that were imposed from above for the benefit of those above, in that government departments and the like can come to one organisation and speak. The flip side of that is, if you want that sort of efficiency, you have to pay for it, as in state government, and I think that's something that needs to be. It wasn't on our watch that we wanted this way forward, so I think that point's validly made, and we'll see what comes of it. I think my understanding is a number of other joint organisations of councils are struggling just as much as the Urana one was. So we'll get back to you after the next meeting on the 12th of May and see what transpires.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor,
We've only moved this, and we haven't, So, the general manager's pointing out something that needed to be covered within the Mannix minutes, that I'm not aware of yet. But in that, we've only moved and seconded this delegate's report. We'll put that aside.
Sorry, Mr.
And
Mayor.
leave it open and just add whatever the general manager brings to our attention.
For timing wise, we had one recommendation, which has been moved and seconded, in relation to the attendance of the IPWA 2021 New South Wales Local Roads Congress. We need a councillor to make sure that they come. Who's very keen on roads and wants to come to Parliament House? It will be.
What's the date?
7th of June, a Monday. A reasonable chance it could be very early morning, and we don't know whether travel down there Sunday or very early Monday. It's trying to come back as quickly as it can by plane.
What June?
7th of June. Be a Monday. Okay.
When do we need to know that?
I would have liked it today.
Okay.
Same as like,
Can we consider that over morning tea, perhaps? Unless someone, Councillor Brewer, are you happy to, would you be able to do that?
I can give it a try. Can I confirm? But I think I'm right.
Okay, that's great.
Monday works.
Great.
travel, might travel Sunday afternoon to get on a plane, if there's one available.
Yep.
Come back late Monday night.
I think I can work that.
Okay.
That's great.
Monday works better than any other day.
Oh, good.
In Parliament House, and we knock on a few doors.
Righto.
And, yeah, that's right. I've got the opportunity. John Rhodes is correct. When you're down in that area, you want to talk to the people who can make decisions. And if we've got, again, a briefing paper to talk to, who's roads? Yeah, it doesn't, matters not. We'll try and get some sort of direct.
Certainly want to talk regional roads to people so they don't take our money on us. Yeah.
And I think it's important, if we can, Councillor Brewer, and you're happy, we'll try and get a direct meeting with someone who can understand our positions on various matters so that they're just being reinforced. And always then, it's so much easier, I think, we can make the phone calls then that, you know, Councillor Brewer was there and spoken to you earlier about this matter, you know.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so we'll record Councillor Brewer as being the delegate subject to confirmation. Thank you. Yeah, excellent. Just moving back now to the minutes of the Joint Organisation Council that have been moved on the second by Councillor Derrick. Are there any requests for any further information regarding that? Councillor Sergi?
It's just a pure observation, but I'm not sure if it's just my eyes are playing up, but I find it very hard to read that print in the minutes.
There we go.
Is anybody else? Is it
Well, that's
just,
fine, yeah.
it's just the font and the fact that it's so pale. I just don't want to read it.
Fair enough.
Is that an observation or did anyone else have the problem?
It's different. I agree. It's different.
Yeah, but it's
And
a
so,
hard font to read, I think.
yep. No, that's fine. Yeah, it's just the way they printed it.
Yeah, it's all good. Can I just ask a question? In paragraph 6 in there in the presentations, the Dougal-Saunders part of it,
Yes.
it says Dougal will support the Urana JO if we want to withdraw from the JO. What does that mean?
He won't stand in the way. See, what happens, the JOs have been established by proclamation. So it'll take a minister's proclamation to disband it. He as a local member won't stand, he won't stand in the way of the councils at the present form part of the JO in requesting that to occur. He could easily say, I won't support that as a parliamentarian, and the way forward is really blocked if there's no proclamation to dissolve the JO.
And does he see the ROC mechanism as a better tool to achieve the same sorts of aims? What's his sort of position?
Probably. I think when it's all said and done, and the idea really is, as we were just talking about a minute ago, it's a top-down approach. The advisors want to come and talk to one organisation. In my view, they don't care in many ways what the legislative requirement is around that. They can live without, in my view, without that. They just want to have the ability to talk to that group in one forum. And so how it's actually constructed is not really the biggest issue for them. I think that probably, in my mind, went over the top in terms of requiring an executive officer at all sorts of rates of pay, audit, type facilities as well. It was just an overkill from what they're really, what they're trying to get out of it. And so I think if there's still access in a regional sense, which the old ODOC had, I think government departments would be happy. Is that
imagine the connotations of actually rolling it back. So that's what we have to contend with until they realise that they're just wasting time.
Councillor.
Mr. Mayor, just with two things, just the rugby centre, what does that look like? What's their background to that?
Okay, it's a regional funding initiative. So there's a precinct near the hospital. I have to say I'm not overly on top of it, but there's a precinct near the hospital, Lord's House in that area. Yeah. So the proposal is for the development of sporting centres of excellence, and amongst those will be tennis and netball as well as rugby. And the other part was there was, and I don't know how that's progressed, PCYC with police youth, whatever that stands for, as part of the whole precinct. So the issue from the JO's point of view, and some of those in the JO's point of view, that things were coming to Dubbo Century, and that's the thing there. I personally am of the view that, despite what those minutes say, they're not really absolutely correct. If it's not in Dubbo, it won't probably happen. And Dubbo's good for us because Dubbo to Warren's not that far. And the point I was trying to make is, we should benefit from that because players will be available, and they're talking about players at the highest level. They're talking about Australian sevens, women's being based in Dubbo, and the Waratahs having a big number of training camps. New South Wales, Queensland games being in Dubbo, and so I think it's good for sport overall, and particularly the other sports come on, tennis and netball. Dougal Saunders is particularly right behind it, but it's significant dollars. So yeah, I think what we don't want to happen is for the Arana JO to shoot this thing in the foot, and then it goes to Tamworth or Wagga. It's no good to us there. Yeah, so we need to have it in Dubbo, and then that's the intent. So I think that was the letter from the JO was going to support the Rugby Centre of Excellence in at least in the Arana region.
Thank you.
That sounds great.
Councillor Wagga.
Can I just bring up the health thing? I mean, you're a whole group of smaller councils. Was there any talk about what's going on in health, the lack of doctors and presence? I mean, unfortunately, I've heard about what happened in Broken Hill when you were there, about a fellow that turned up and couldn't get an ambulance, couldn't get no one to pick him up to go to Adelaide. From what I can gather here, he probably didn't have a doctor this week. I mean, it's an appalling situation. I don't know if that means council needs to get more political. We need to really start getting the community and all these other councils together on this issue. It's not enough jumping up and down and really having a go at the government to get something going. They say they are, but we're not seeing it on the ground.
Okay, I'll take a little bit different view in that, okay, I think it depends who's recruiting for you. a couple of issues. Oka have been very successful. They've got 2 or 3 doctors out at Perth now. Canamble have 5 doctors. So it's there. So I think the pressure probably comes in the questions asked of Brahms as opposed to.
Would you do that as a community or as council?
I think we can have a private conversation with Brahms perhaps as council and just saying, look, we're not, let's lift your game. I think in the times when, we engage Brahms, they would go to group. They're probably better than Oka at that time. Now Oka really seem to have lifted their game. They're paying, as you've seen those minutes, significant amounts of money to get people on the ground. But what they're doing, a lot of medicos come out and they're just on a contract basis, so that they're whatever, it's a fee for service situation, so if they're working, they're getting paid. As soon as they stop, their wages stop. So the only way around that is to provide them with a salary, which is what Oka are doing. So I think there must be, reading between the lines, there must be some, I don't know, I think there must be some extra funding, occurring somehow to make those sort of packages attractive.
I think it needs to be an approach of count, as you said, Brahms was put, was chosen and put in that centre. I just don't think, if you don't have a doctor and you don't have anyone who can visit the hospital, I mean, it's a terrible situation for the community and people who are sick. I don't think it's good enough to get to that.
So, I mean, I think there's probably room for the Warren Health Action Committee and council to sort of, just let's have a conversation and say, and make the differentiation between what's happening in the Burks and Canambles, who have Oka, as to us. And it's not an unreasonable thing to ask.
People shouldn't have to be travelling to go to Dubbo. I think people, when they get to Dubbo, find that's an experience they enjoy sometimes.
The other side of it, that's one part. The other side of it is that Western New South Wales presentation by Shannon Knight and Scott McLaughlin. And really, and I'd love, and I've intended to ask them to come and make the same presentation to council and to the Health Action Committee. And where they're going, the rural schools are starting to, one of the ones got, about 40 odd applicants for, about 400 or something applicants for medical degrees. They're slowly getting that number through. They're working on the same thing in the Sydney University staying at Dubbo School, which will start next year. They had 400 or 500 applicants for medicine. They've taken 40 odd, and all of those come from New South Wales. And Mark Holt, the same girl from Narrabri, fellow from Walgett. It's going to take time to come through the system. But what I'm coming back to is that Western Local Health, the first slide was they recognised that medical services centre around a GP being in your town. And in my mind, hooray, that's a big tick. That's where we start, and then we work from there. The other thing that they did say was, 30% of, I think 30% of health outcomes are just basically genetic. So you've got that bit. There's another 30% that I can't remember what, and then there's a lot to do with just the sort of lifestyle that you lead, and so that has a big influence. So we need to step back a little bit and make our town and our people aware of just being healthier themselves. There's a lot of ill health is self-inflicted, is what I'm sort of coming to.
I think I'm just pointing out that we need a doctor in town. We need a doctor, and also if you can have mentors, the students, they can come out and do a placement. You need a doctor here to be their mentor. So, and
you need a doctor of a particular calibre to be able to do the mentoring. It has to be. There come people who are waiting for their registration to a particular level, and I'm not quite across that, but Councillor Bruce might know better than more.
Also, maybe suggestion that we get the CEO from Brahms to come and speak.
Yeah, I think we need to, we'll work on being a little bit more active in that space, and just because we know that things can happen elsewhere, we need it to happen here. Is it satisfying you, Councillor Walker, for the minute?
Sorry, I'll just get this is important to the community. If you don't have a doctor, you don't get people to be here. We need a doctor
It's present, and they are.
Okay.
But I think forming the WAC committee was a great start. It's a, yeah, to go forward.
I think the gentleman has listened very time to you, and I'm listening, and we'll continue.
Thank you.
You know, it's a sort of issue, you know, when Mark Topper comes on, is that done? If anyone's around, so he's here for the dawn service, have a chat with him, because health, you know, is a big responsibility.
It's more the building than the actual operation.
No, they pay the wages,
Yeah,
They won't pay the wages.
not the buildings. That's the trouble, it's so,
it's too simple.
yeah, buildings are more stable. Yeah, okay, any further questions out of the, RJO, meeting? Being the case, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to the Country Mayors Association, again, the minutes are there. I'm happy to move those. I'm sure the minutes are there somewhere like this, A second, please, Councillor Bruce. I think we did speak verbally regarding this issue, this meeting. The Minister for Health, Brad Hazzard, was present at that meeting, but particularly talking about COVID and COVID-related rollouts, etc., which I think is a changing landscape since this actual meeting occurred. The other one was various matters, the financial assistance grants. That was more Linda Scott speaking, as President of Government New South Wales, about the financial assistance grants being heavily predicated on population, and so if there wasn't such population bias, we were significantly better off potentially if there was a redistribution of that funding. We talked about the emergency services levy, which is a concern to all country mayors, and so that issue is well and truly on the agenda, as we've spoken about. Happy to answer any other questions regarding the that country mayors, 2 minutes of the country mayors meeting.
Mr Mayor, just on the solar farms comment, was that a positive or a negative inference, like number 11, to solar farms and their effect on agricultural land?
Yep, both. It was a bit, okay, grazing seems to be something that's quite possible around solar farms. A lot of this came down from around Albury, or some of this comment on the other side came from the Alburys and places like that where solar farms were encroaching on agricultural land that was used for vegetable production and those sorts of things. So what the upside of it is, there is a place for solar farms. Let's not make use of really significantly productive land for a solar farm. Let's site them appropriately. Basically, that's the upside of what we're saying.
Thank you.
Any further comments, questions on the Country Mayors meeting, minutes of that meeting? Yes, Councillor.
I'm just interested in the fourth amalgamations. It's interesting to see that the council that wanted to amalgamate, we said all this at the very beginning when we fought for all those years not to go through this process, and they didn't listen. And now it's coming back to bite them because they just one stroke fixes all, and it's now been proved that one stroke doesn't fix all. So it's interesting to see. It'd be really interesting to see the outcome of that at the end of the day.
They've been battling it. It's Gundagai and Tumut, I think, have been battling for a long time, and I don't know whether they're getting any traction, but certainly it hasn't worked for them. And we've seen on Central Coast, it hasn't really worked there. Armadale's struggling since they've got an administrator now, though, or they're back with the council.
Back with 5.
Yeah.
4 of them have resigned, and they actually, so 9 to 5, and they actually can't have anyone absent.
Yes, that's right.
As soon as one walks out, the meeting is adjourned. So that's actually, can you imagine the politics of that now? 2 of them are getting up and walking outside because they've lost a house. Where's the perfect one?
So in reality, I think we very much stood on our own, and I think for good reason. We could never see the value in any sort of amalgamation, that fit for the future 2036 document was something that should never have seen the light of day today, honestly. And I think we did very much collectively did the right thing in just saying it's not going to work for us. And yeah, I don't think we need to go any further with that one. Any further comments, questions on country mayors? There'll be another meeting on the date. May, Friday, 28th of May, which I'll probably go to, particularly because they're inviting Belinda Pavey again to speak, so we'll just keep banging on about. We should be sick of us, but that's the way it is. And there's something with someone else who's been invited that was probably thought was all right too. Right. No, it's, yeah, anyway, that's not, because I think it is quite a valuable forum, and again, I'll try and get the time again to speak with or ask questions in the public forum I'll speak with. Minister Pavey, she does recognise Warren-Shire Council and who I am, so that's always a start. So we just we need to just keep on. And I think that coming back, that's the value of going to the broken hills of the world. You actually meet with these people face to face. They understand who you are. If you're polite to them and not, oh, that's a good idea. Do we know about that idea about a pipeline from Warrington in? Tom, do we know about that? What have we got to do to action that? So it's really at first hand, as opposed to sending a letter. That's fine. We sent the letter. It's on your file, but have you read it?
That one 2 years ago.
Yeah. Anyway, that's by the way. Anything else on country mayors? No, nothing further. We'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 3 of the delegate report, that of the interagency support services. Someone have to move that. Councillor Derrick, second. Councillor Irvin. Councillor Derrick.
Thank you, Mr.
Hands
Chair.
going everywhere. Apologies.
I'd just like to point out that the delegates report is by Councillor Irvin. Councillor Walker wasn't able to attend, so thank you, Councillor Irvin, for that. I guess the 2 items on the checklist I'll just mention. So we have had low attendance for the last 12 months or so, pretty much since COVID, and we haven't really gotten back to good numbers. The Manager of Health and Development did have good suggestions to look into using Microsoft Teams to allow people to attend electronically, so that would be ideal and hopefully improve our numbers, because it is difficult for a lot of outreach services in particular to attend more on those meeting dates. So the Manager of Health and Development has kindly offered to investigate that and see if we can facilitate that with 2 meetings. So I think that will help us a lot. In saying that, we did have a productive meeting. We did a lot of tidying up our action checklist, and one thing that we want to add to our action checklist was to invite a representative of the Warren Health Advisory Committee. As we've discussed this morning, there's a lot going on and a lot that we probably should keep on top of. We'd just like to hear what that group has been doing and what the issues are, which I think would be quite relevant to the whole interagency group. So I think that's about it, unless anyone has any questions.
Just a comment, Councillor Derrick, and to those who facilitate this. I think it's a valuable forum because of their own mission. So many of the NGOs and government agencies have this real silo mentality, and unless we facilitate some sort of cross-fertilisation, we don't get any sort of value for the input that comes into town. The idea that you can operate in a silo in your little patch is so bureaucratic. We need to break it down, and I think you got, collectively, 3 councillors just really work hard at breaking that down. And that's valuable. I think we need to continue to facilitate this arrangement. Councillor Irvin, sorry, yes.
You're right, Mr. Mayor, just because we did point out at the last meeting how valuable the this committee is, we have the meetings, because, basically now we have the Warren Youth Foundation really connecting with a lot of the outreach services that weren't happening before. Yeah, so they've created a space where outreach services can go and work out from there, and that all happened at an interagency meeting.
Fantastic. Good result. Yep. Councillor Walker.
Can I just commend Annette Irving? I found her talk about the Warren View Club and how it was established by George Forbes. I thought it was terrific. Yeah, so, no, I think it was great she was there to have a chat about it. Thank you.
Any further comments, questions regarding the integrated support services report? Report. If nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to policy, and that the only item in that area is to do with vacation care policies, and the audit review that indicated we needed to tidy up a few areas. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Sturdy, second. Councillor Walker. Councillor Sturdy.
It's really, Mr. Mayor, it's the way to go. If you don't get all these policies up to date and signed off, ticked off from 11, you're forever behind the A4 trying to get the standard. It's not fair in their standards, so it's much needed, and hopefully it'll all go through without any actions. Negative actions, that is. Good reading, though.
Yeah, a lot of reading, yes. Yes, very small print in this one, Councillor.
I said to enlarge that and see it. It's just the other one I had struggled with. I enlarged it when fuzzy.
No, I mean, once we ran vacation care, I mean, council subsidised vacation care is well there to whatever tune of $14,000 a 2 week, is it?
Really recommend that this year, going to be more than this year to get all these documents up.
Yeah.
Up to speed, but we need to, so we can do, look at Aaron, working on all that extra, so we will be going from the budget review, come to it, I'll put another 11,000 in there, so, yeah, so it's been a fair hit this year.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that serves our community well. It's been ongoing for a number of years. It'd be really difficult to pull it back. So if we're not pulling it back, we've got to go and do the things that need to be done. It's just a sign of the times with the degree of policy that you have to have in procedure you have to have in place.
Interesting times.
So, thank you for that, Councillor Sergi. Is there anything further before we put that? Then you guys put that regarding the vacation care policies and the review. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the reports to council, and the first of those is the report of the General Manager. The first of those being the outstanding reports checklist. Someone happy to move those, noting the asterisk items there for removal from the action checklist. There's a couple there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Councillor Sergi happy to move that. Second. Councillor Walker. Councillor Sergi.
Yeah, it's just interesting, the things that are still there and the things that are finally been able to be taken off. Thank you.
Question from one for the Minister, Land and Finance Administration. Vacant block of land next to the old nursery cafe. Have we received any interest in that at all? It used to be on this list, and I'm just wondering whether there's been some.
I haven't had any interest at all.
Can I ask a question about the airport and that tender? It says that the tender, this is in 25th of the 3rd, 2021. The tender documentation sign of works nearing completion for the runway. Does that include that Fulton Hogan mess at the end with the swimming pool? Is that looks to me to be still having water on? Is that right?
I think that they're actually, between the manager who's looking after the project and the contractor, they're actually working out how to fix the problem, drainage.
And you're confident that they'll sort that out?
Thank you. Anything further on the action checklist? On one of the general manager's report? Sorry, you got a question, Councillor? Oh,
Yes, please.
yes.
With the general manager, I'd like to thank you for, obviously beginning investigations to get feedback on the draft master plan, Carter Oval, the sporting recreational precinct. Just, I guess, wondering how you're getting on with that, whether hopefully our community engagement strategy
Doing that at the same time.
that might be able to help.
It can be the pilot program.
I think that's a huge job, and it's great that the acknowledgement letters have been sent out to those that made a comment on that master plan, and hopefully we can improve our engagement in that area. Have you got anything to add to that?
Well, the second part of it, I've actually, sometimes it's better never to try to reinvent the wheel. I've asked a group of about 40 people I know, and a few of them are starting to turn up with different examples of and some of them range from being 5 pages long on how to do it to 33 pages. I think we come close to the end of 5 pages, but really almost like helping you do a checklist of who you should be talking to and how to get them involved, and a process to follow. Don't, look, and so that it will be a good practice. I think we just need to start trying to fix up our construction side and get things going at the same time.
Thank you.
And get more money for it, more grants for it.
Councillor Devitt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering regarding the council houses, under Management Health and Development section, so the complaint lodged with Department of Fair Trading, is there any update on anything to do with those houses?
Bob looks, I think a week later she'll provide some more information, but I can't update any further. It'd be like any government department, it'll take some time.
Any further comments, questions regarding the action checklist on one of the general manager's report? Nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. As is traditional, in recognition of Warren being a healthy town and to keep awareness of healthy lifestyle, Council is standing by doing item 2 of the general manager's report. That being the committee and delegates meeting. Someone happy to move those? Councillor Sturdy, second. Councillor Higgins. Councillor Sturdy.
I don't think there's anything I needed to bring up, thank you. But in light of the fact that it's a very short report, can we also stand for item 3?
I just, you look at the number of meetings that are occurring, I think it's a bit of a recognition of the amount of time we're collectively having to spend, and I mean councillors and staff, going to meetings and dealing with meetings. We need to be really effective and considered when we're going to a meeting, I think, and time effective and be efficient. It's just, we can't all devote endless hours to going just for the sake of going to a meeting.
Can I add a meeting to that, sorry? I add, there's the Castlereagh Macquarie County Council meeting on Monday the 26th, which is this coming Monday.
Yeah, Monday. Are you able to attend, Councillor? You're fantastic. Good. Councillor Zest.
Sorry, just a question. The online meeting with the MP Sophie Costas, what was the discussion there?
She's of course shadowing and stuff, but it was not an Institute of Public Works Engineering Australasia organised thing where a whole heap of people were just trying to give her some feedback, particularly on really the problems of IT problems where everyone's trying to hack into us everywhere.
So, yeah, okay, it's a pretty important one these days.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Walker, then Councillor Sturdy. Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Steve. I was just wondering the online conversation with John Clements, what's his name?
He really was just trying to say hello. and come up with a few minor things, but really just saying hello to the new general manager. We actually did have a little bit of a discussion with him on a few matters in Broken Hill. But we were making sure that we were continuing to develop a positive relationship with his boss.
Yep. Councillor Sir, did you have a question too?
Yeah, no, I'm revoking the idea that we stand for item 3, because I just remembered how long it is. I could be lynched by the time I leave here.
Nice to have you, Councillor Sir.
I have, but I'm looking at Councillor Drews.
Councillor Bruce, you might be struggling at the minute.
Okay.
Any further comments, questions regarding item 2, the general manager's report, the committee meetings? No, there being nothing further, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Please have a seat. Moving on to item 3 of the general manager's report, that is the works progress reports and the update there, infrastructure projects and where they're up to. Someone happy to move that, excuse me, that report? Councillor Surtees happy to move that. Second, Councillor Bruce, Councillor Surtees.
Yeah, it was a good report to read. It was very, very informative. Answered a lot of questions that we tend to bring up. So, yeah, very happy with it. And again, thank you for the acronyms. Well, can you also try and remember to, the main reason I brought the acronym thing up was it was to do with the agencies that we deal with. A lot of them have the same initials, and they're not always the same agency that's referred to in a particular part of the report. So we can still work on that bit, that it is much appreciated. Thank you.
There's anything in that works progress report that you want to make a comment?
Oh, well, the five grant applications have been put in. So we're successful with 1 or 2, or even more than 1 or 2 of them. Just important thing is the finance section checks the budget and the expenditure.
Absolutely. And has a good handle on where we're up to with each project. That's absolutely.
And I'm trying to do that too over the next month or so, to try to get on top of some of the projects and some of the things that have to be sorted out.
So,
Just a question. Page 9, just with the Stafford Water Tower, have you got any further with the suitability background around the cherry pickers?
That and how clean we have to have it is the 2 problems.
Yeah. And
the third one will be the 37,000, probably known to them. So, between Councillor Surtees and I, we've been talking to the artist, put him on hold to be doing works, but continuing on with his concept.
I haven't heard back from him yet either. I'll keep the number in mind.
Usually,
Not the last one. Cover it off through. So, Councillor.
On page 7, just the expenditure for the cover overall and development of the surrounds, I just was wondering, is that the skate park? And it talks about the splash park in the comment area, and I know that we've paid for that, so I'm just not sure if that expenditure figure is.
you probably find some of the work around the skate park and splash park is included as well in this.
Would it be possible to get it at some point, I guess for the next sporting facilities meeting, we could get a breakdown, because
Yeah, I think the person who knows about where the funding is the man who finds administration, so I'll defer to him to just make it as clear as we possibly can.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. The Carter Open development from the Murray-Darling Basin Fund was a total of 2.2 million. So we've already done the skate park the previous year, so that's come out of it. The splash park is a separate grant again, so this 1.2 million that's in there is allocated for the rest of the work for Carter Oval, which should be the ovals, sporting fields and and everything else, the dressing sheds and canteen area. So the splash park, like you said, the funding.
We could have not had it in there.
Yeah.
We could have had skate park complete, splash park complete. We could have taken that, but I left it in there because really it was large. I'm trying to keep to this year's work, but I left it in there.
Yeah, no worries, thank you. So just again to clarify that the 479,000 is not the splash park and not the skate park.
Nothing to do with that whatsoever.
Thank you, that's great. And just quickly on page 9, I was concerned, I don't know, it's where they, down further, actually, page 11, I was just concerned about the application, grant applications in relation to murals that haven't actually been discussed at a committee level or had community feedback on. Yeah, I just wondered what the grounds were for applying for grants for industrial access road grants, all those when, I'm not sure if you have the grounds to do that yet.
You do when you make sure the owner is aware and happy.
Right, and so what about the community?
I understand, but don't put the grant in and get nothing.
So who's
That
the
is the way I
owner?
do
Which
Peter Thomas
size
owns
are we
it, so
talking about?
Peter Thomas.
Okay, I'm just concerned because we were coming up with an overall plan for the Shire, and I'm not sure if that is in the plan, but we can.
Can I say we get the money and the Arts Committee work out how we're going to spend the money properly? That's the idea.
Okay, I have heard that before. That's how it works.
Oh, we need to get, understand that we had to make a decision. We had about 12 days to actually come, and I have had a kind of people who used to be members of the committee come and say hello and show some of their concepts, and that's how it kind of expanded out to say, well, let's try to get an economic development process that we could have someone come in and look at all our murals.
So we don't necessarily have to stick with that though, because that might not be what the committee hasn't approved that.
What comes back from the community.
Yeah.
Oh, I understand, but I mean, in the end, we don't really want to give $130,000 back. You know, it's an idea. And the council has a resolution not to do anything with we'll call it the Oxley Park or Ravenswood Tower, to leave it, it's green, it stays the same. So there was an idea we thought, well, those horrible grey silos could be made into a beautiful mural out there.
Who suggested those?
Just a general discussion from everyone.
So it's not been through the committee?
No.
It hasn't come to us at all yet. I can understand where the general manager's coming from. He's just trying to put out some feelers to get money in, so that we can, once we know the grant has been successful, we can actually sit down and look down exactly where that money gets spent with the feedback from the community. But I can understand where he's coming from. Deadlines and stuff, you've got to just get as much as you can in there to try and get the funding available to make the plans forward.
My belief is yes, it was a very, very short time frame, Councillor Irving. It was in and out really, really fast. I think there's not any degree of detail, particularly about where the funds can be expended, except the phone call was made to Mr. Thomas to say would that be acceptable to him, because but if we're successful, then I think there's some real detailed work to be done by the Public Arts Committee about how it would be expended. My belief is there's not a significant amount of detail in the actual application. So it was a time frame thing. Councillor Sergi was certainly consulted as chair of that committee. We just needed to, I think I understood about it, a day or two before the application's closed. So it's really, what do you think of this idea? What do you think of that idea? Councillor Leach, what do you think of that? And let's get it in and let's have an opportunity at least. The other thing was that the criteria made it really difficult to identify things that would fit, and it really, we're really clutching at straws in many ways to even come up with things that were worthwhile. Look, apologies perhaps for the way that it was done, but I think we've left it very broad so that we can get a decent outcome. It's better to have, as the gentleman said, have access to something than absolutely nothing and let it float by, particularly because we were one of the communities who were affected most significantly by the bypass in the Murray-Darling Basin.
And that's why we want to try to do as many applications as possible to try to beat the other 37, and we're also trying to do the same thing. So we are one of the ones that should be getting all of them.
Yeah, which doesn't sit easy with me, but we saw some of those funds early on going to the Lithgos of the world, and but I don't know what they had particularly to do with being targeted by loss of community immunity because of water going out of their valley. That's another issue. We just need to be in there, and I think it can be refined significantly, Councillor Irving, that makes you feel more comfortable about.
I just think that with our grant applications, we need a more coordinated approach. I mean, I think this haphazard approach can lead to disaster. And I think without our proper community consultation on every project, we're leaving ourselves out, open for criticism again, and I'm really worried about that. And I really appreciate, though, I understand the context of this, but this is a pattern that's happening, and I'd rather us have a coordinated approach to grant applications.
I think this was a case of we apply or we miss out completely.
Yeah, and we have to weigh up the pros and cons of that.
I'll take the money every time.
Over community.
Well, otherwise community misses out completely.
Yeah.
Councillor Derrick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do definitely agree with what Carly is saying, but I understand the circumstances here, and I think it's important to have community engagement in the delivery of the projects and the detail of the projects, which, as we've said, hasn't been established yet. This list is not set in stone, and there's the purpose of getting the grant in. So I think there's still opportunity for that level of community consultation that we do need to consider.
Certainly was, particularly with that particular project here, need everyone's help to get it right.
And I think just if I can throw my two balls worth in, if we focus too hard on a particular project, like the tower at Ball Flat, that may never get painted just because of the moisture and the quality of that tower and the likelihood that paint will fade. There's a whole bunch of things that make that, in my eyes, a high risk activity. If you focus too hard on a particular outcome, it just goes off the rails, and then you're opening yourself to greater criticism. I mean, does the community understand the difficulty and the challenge of painting that tower as it stands? Like, it hasn't dried out ever. There's no way you can put cherry pickers or anything near that, or scaffolding or anything in a safe way. So if we focused completely on that, it would come unravelled and we wouldn't have a plan B. And I think that we need a diverse bag of tricks to be able to ensure, but it's that committee's job to look at all the options and say, okay, this is what we could do. When the funding comes in, work out which the best way to spend the funding with the least amount of risk, because that is a risky thing, not only physically, but a risk to the actual outcome of that paint. Because it's, at the moment, if it was your house or your structure, I wouldn't paint it. I think it's so flaky looking, literally, that I wouldn't paint near it. So I'm all for the money first in a big way, but look at a bunch of projects that we could do, and then investigate those as we get that funding.
Yeah, we've made mistakes in the past, even with the Stafford Street Tower process. So we just want to be sure we don't forget.
Yep.
That's all I'm concerned. That's it. But
And that's completely, I think it's a completely appropriate attitude as well. That's why we have a diverse group here in council, so that these things are questioned. So we just don't all go straight through them. So, yep, I'm also on your side, don't worry.
That's right, we're taking on it. Yes, I Councillor, we're not being dismissive of that, we're in that same boat, we want to see effective communication occur. This set of circumstances, I think it will occur at the next stage. If we're successful, first tick, are we successful? Then let's be, with that your committee, let's get it nailed down and get it so it comes to fruition over time. Any further, Councillor Walker?
Yeah, it's along similar lines, the walkway structures. I don't know where that's coming from, who's in.
So
I mean, there's no plan, I haven't seen a plan for the walkway structures, it's to do with the table tennis sculpture, it's at Victoria Park, but I might have missed it, but have we got a plan where the other structures are and what they are?
Okay. This is a grant application by the Warren Arts Council. And so they've been liaising with the infrastructure projects manager about where sculptures. This came out of some drought, stepping back a bit, some drought funding. Farmers who are a bit capable to do some structures that would enhance Warren as an arts centre, along with murals, etc. There has been some investigation. It would occur along the levee bank between Macquarie Park and Victoria Oval. And there's areas basically identified as appropriate for those structures to go. But
They've been brought to council, I know what you just said, but have we got a plan of what they are and where they're going?
not yet. And because it's really been held off in many ways because of the drought, changed all of that. It was to fund people who were perhaps on farms, capable welders to build, bring some structures. They'd have to be approved by council. It has to be, they can't have sharp edges and all those sort of things. There's all that sort of stuff to go through. As of today, the table tennis one is the only one that's been.
So we'll see something, if there's a plan for this, we'll see that come up and
Have to identify the structures and where they are. Yeah, that's something they just won't plonk without a plan. Yep. I think, sorry, yes, Councillor Brew, thank you for that. Is there any further comment, questions on item 3 of the General Management Report, the Works Progress Report? No, being nothing further, we put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll have to adjourn the meeting. Is that how? Council will adjourn the meeting and move off to our Anzac Day ceremony at the Warren Central School, and commence the meeting after that. Going for your attendance then at the Anzac services at Warren Central School. I think that was worthwhile going to. It was obviously a well-run occasion, and just a reminder about our Anzac Day services, dawn service. Andrew Brewer, you might be able to, that's 5:45 or so, 6 o'clock? Yep, 5:45 is that thing, serving and 6 o'clock service. And then the other one is
11 o'clock.
10:45.
March will commence at, I think it's 10 to 11.
Yeah, so any councillors who can attend, that'd be great. I think Councillor Irving's indicated she's going to be at the Colli service, so if she represents council, that would be a good thing as well. Thank you. Okay. We have resumed the meeting following the Anzac Service at the Central School. We'll move on to item 4 of the report of the General Manager, that being the appointment of a delegate and an alternate delegate to the Murray-Darling Association. The General Manager and I have had a conversation with Councillor Beach yesterday evening, and he is willing to accept that nomination as the principal delegate. If someone here to nominate him, Councillor Bruce to nominate someone to second, Councillor Derrick.
And second.
And alternate if we possibly could. Someone, Councillor Bruce, would you happen to offer yourself as an alternate in that?
No, that's fine, thank you.
In the event that Councillor Beach couldn't attend, there are a number of regional meetings in this space. and then there's the annual conference. So I'm hopeful that Councillor Beach might go attend the annual conference, which is, it's down south somewhere, I'm not sure exactly where it is, and I'm not too sure when it is, but it's within the next 3 or 4 months. But if the worst came to worst, I think we would have a delegate there, in that each river systems people have to understand what our particular patch does or doesn't contribute. On the upside, Councillor Davies, Mayor of Warranshire Council, seems to be the chair of our region. We're Region 10, I think, the Murray-Darling Association, so I'm sure he'll attend, but I think it's good to have Warranshire there as well. So in the event of an alternate, we will ask for someone to attend it if there's no one absolutely willing at the moment. And hopefully Councillor Beach can attend. That being the case, we'll put that Councillor Mark Beach be our delegate to the Murray-Darling Association. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to the reports of the Divisional Manager of Finance Administration. The first of those is the reconciliation certificate. Someone happy to move the reconciliation certificate? Councillor Brewer, second. Councillor Walker. Councillor Brewer moved it. Councillor Walker, second. Councillor Brewer.
Just moving the recommendation, thank you.
Thank you. And so, the Managed Finance Administration has a comment there that.
If I may,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor, you've probably noticed on page 2 that our investments have dropped quite considerably, but I haven't had the chance to speak to the General Manager and the Mayor, but I had a phone call from T-Corp on Tuesday, and we were successful in our loan application with them, so details will be forwarded in the near future. Looking to draw down the loan sometime in June.
Smaller and smaller, the percentage, 2.75?
Oh, no,
I'm getting some advice from them, and they've actually been dropping interest rates, 2.8 last week, 2.75.
Yeah, so the upside of that is, I don't know whether we've said this in this forum, but the upside of Managed Finance Administration was that it was life for loan.
In my next book,
Yes.
item after the next one, the draft operational plan, I based it on a 4% repayment of interest, so that could be a big saving for us, the official rate.
Yeah, absolutely. And the upside is that rate is also, from my understanding, fixed for the 20 years. So when you're fixing money at that cost for 20 years, in 20 years you're going to be paying in their dollars, paying back that loan. So with the effects of inflation, that's going up, I think it's a really worthwhile, sensible option to have taken at this time to create infrastructure at today's dollars that you perhaps couldn't afford later on. So anything further report, item 1 of the Managed Finance Administration's report, reconciliation to be, going to put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Item 2, the statement of rates and annual charges, as per the 9th of April. Someone have to move that. Councillor Derrick, Councillor Sodeby. Councillor Derrick.
I'd like to move recommendations of this matter.
Just as an aside on this one, when General Manager at Broken Hill, any number of councillors were astounded that our rate collection was as high as it actually is, that everyone's actually being able to meet their commitments. In one sense, I know the Managed Finance Administration does look very kindly on making arrangements on behalf of people, and the fact that on the other side, people are willing to pay their rates, enter into some sort of arrangement if they need to. I think we all understand things happen, and the fact that it's at that higher level, they're saying, oh, do you get what, high 80s, 90%? He said, no, we're up at the, whatever, it's around the 98, 99. And so credit to the Managed Finance Administration and his team to keep it all going. Nothing further on item 2 of the reports of Managed Finance Administration. No, that being the case, put that, all those in favour? Against, carried. Item 3, works progress reports, Finance Administration, particularly in relation to the projects. And I think that's an interesting area. I might just, someone happy to move the recommendation, the information you received and noted first. Councillor Sturdy, Councillor Walker. Councillor Sturdy, I'm just wondering if the management administration might just update us a little bit on council administration building, where that's actually sitting, in that we want to try and complete that project as far as is absolutely possible. And then the other part, I think, in terms of information technology, etc., just how that fits into the scheme of things as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The new counter for service and council was installed on the 12th, so it's all looking pretty good. We when we had Service New South Wales come out, they suggested maybe a couple more counters be put in, which they will pay for. So we had our cabinet mate come across yesterday to have a look, and we had a few modifications that we're going to put in there. Although the tile floor and the carpeting was put down over the weekend. The painting should be probably tomorrow. I think they'll come in to look at doing the painting, and then we'll get a grouting and things. We are looking at the interview room next, and the possibility of purchasing more carpet to do the whole area of the hallway and the front area. But I just want to keep mindful of the costing, so I just want to get some costing in as to what the front service areas with all the internal works that we've done, get a bill for that, and then see where we go from there. There is also grant money out there for the new portal for the development applications that are going to be in by July for an amount up to 50,000. We haven't received it. the physical cash. And we were looking with consultation with our manager of health and development, then making the interview room area, and so if we can put 50 grand in towards that, then we should be able to finish the whole building. But I want to see the costs come in first, because I know, I want to be mindful of where we are. So hopefully, with that coming in, we should be able to get all of our furniture and get it all finalised with the luck.
Yeah,
so
fantastic.
Yeah, so at this stage, I'm just waiting on a few accounts to come in. We had the account from the cabinet maker, he come in $23,000, whereas we were allowed about 25, so there's a couple of grand there. So and Service New South Wales are going to come to the party with a bit of few of the extra costs and things, and things looking okay. I haven't scheduled what everything's going to be done, because I want to see where our costings were.
Yes.
And our builder's pretty busy at the moment elsewhere as well, so he's trying to fit in two places at once, basically.
Yeah, no, I have to say, the builders have been, I've been here on a couple of weekends and just called in, and they're here, Sundays, whatever day, just to try and accommodate council and to be open again for Monday morning in some form for the front office. So, yeah, thanks, Darren, you might just pass that on. Thank you to the builders for being so accommodating in what they're doing.
Can I just ask one quick question in relation to the DA stuff? When we went to the library zone meeting on Tuesday, we were talking about the department are trying to wiggle their way into having those DA setups down at the libraries, which the staff are not trained for down there. So you're talking about having it in the New South Wales area or in that interview room?
Into the interview room.
So it could be set up in there so that people will do it.
From what I understand is that, all the DAs and things have to be lodged online now, and apparently they all have to have an email account so they can get notified that it's been lodged. And this, so, if you get an older person coming and wanting to do something, then we've got to sit down basically with them, push them all through the process online, set up and everything. So I think that's what the seed funding is 50,000 is for, and so we're saying, okay, well, we'll need to secure a room, we'll need to fit that room out, and know that we're looking at doing it, and then saying, well, okay, this is going to be a secure area for the people who come in, private and things like that.
That's excellent. That's great.
So, I mean, it's getting to the stage where when we started this process any number of years ago, getting to this building's good, getting to that building was the starting point, really saying we need to have a presentable and up-to-date council
front reception area. And now we're getting to that, and that's, I'm really pleased that we've stuck to our guns and said this is where we want to go, and it's been achieved through DA and his consultation with his staff about, you know, the ideal setup, and Susan said I was coming. So, yeah, all in all, I think the end is in sight, in relative sight of being there. Thank you, Dan. And just a comment, you made a comment to me about the photocopy standing in terms of planning and how the one that can do the big map pages and et cetera.
Really, that's in the operational plan.
Oh, it's not in this part? Okay, thank you. No, I just read scanner and photocopy, but that's it.
That's out 2 little ones.
Yeah.
The A3 size maximum, not the A1s and AOs.
Thank you, excellent. Okay, anything further on the works progress report for the finance administration area, their projects? Councillor Irving, yes.
Yeah, so excited we have this, and I've been calling it community hall because to me it's more of a hall than a room, but just wondering if as a council we can write a community hall policy used for the community. Yeah. Only in the context that we have the Warren CWA Speak Out Day for all the primary schools in the Shire happening on Monday morning, and yeah, just to get some clarity on the use of the venue would be great in a policy. Is that how it works?
Policy, almost written, is fees and charges is $120 for half a day and $240 for the full day. That's very applicable to the size and the same costs proportional of what's over the sporting complex. They're booked in on Monday, I think, but it'll cost them $120 plus the cost of the fair.
Yeah, just we can put something on our website.
That's pretty cheap, $120 for half a day or $240.
Yeah, no, that's not an issue, it's just.
Oh, yeah, we want to let them know that it's available to book, and things are starting to be set up.
Yeah.
The booking calendar is set and all in the right time.
There's something on the website.
Yes, absolutely, letting people know that it is available.
Yeah.
We've been talking about it, we talk about being for public use, but those outside. No, yeah, but I think we're getting a stage where we can do that, Councillor. Yeah, thank you for that. Is there anything further on the works progress report as regards to management finance administration's area? Being nothing else, we'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 4 of that same report regarding the 2021 draft operational plan and estimates. Someone happy to move the recommendation? Sturdy, thank you. Second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Sturdy.
Yeah, I mean, it's all there, and this is the one that we had that extra workshop on, wasn't it? Yeah. So it's all been explained. It needs to go out now to the general public and see what happens when it comes back. Anything you know? Oh, there was one comment I just had. I noticed on page 9 of that report, and I think it's just a typo. Number 3, the Colorado residential rates and charges have increased by $42. And then when you go to the end of the sentence, it says, which equates to a total rate of $1,000, well, it works out $101, but I think it's just missing a 0 or something.
Is it 1,010 or?
No, that's one of them.
Okay. Thank you for that. That's good. Find that and make sure it's fixed up.
Yeah. Excellent, thank you, Councillor Sturdy, for doing so. Reading it, I did gloss over it.
That's when I decided that my eyes were either playing up, because when I got to the Murray Darling, that's the water thing, I thought.
I think you can read perfectly well, Councillor Sturdy. Now that with your magnifying glass.
That's the next thing on the agenda, I think.
So this will go out on public display now until the, whatever date in May, 26th of May, and it will wait. Thank you. Any further comments, questions, information stored on this? Is that Councillor Evans?
Just a comment, thank you to the General Manager for in the short time that, you've been here, you've actually really looked at, the plan that, you know, the new, green Riverlow areas, that council has to address, and, you know, I felt like you did a good job of just,
So hopefully, the new council will get a little bit more expanded, version of it. We have to stick with the existing one because it relates to the delivery plan. There's not a lot of changes again, so.
Any further comments, questions on, the operational plans and estimates? Which we dealt with fairly well, I believe, at that workshop. Anything else? No, we'll put that, all those in favour, against, carried. Moving on to item 5 of the Division Manager Finance Administration report, the librarian's report on the library operations. So, Councillor Surtees, happy to move that. Second, Councillor Egan. Councillor Surtees.
Yeah, it's pretty much all there, and just I'll do a proper written report for the meeting that I attended on Tuesday. One thing that did come out of that meeting on Tuesday is that Pam is now the zone secretary and treasurer for the lady's retiring. The other thing of note is the, I'm just trying to find the page it's on. It's to do, yes, National Simultaneous Story Time. That was the one I explained a couple of months back, that it's actually coming from the space station, which will be on the 19th of May at 11 o'clock. And I happened to have the telly on yesterday afternoon, and I noticed there's some little school around the area that actually had a link up with the space station, and they were talking to the astronaut, and I thought, isn't that wonderful? You can talk to the astronaut in space, but you can't give us local service. So it can be done. It can be done.
You've never tied to space. You
have a good chance. Yeah. So, you know, there's a lot of things happening at the library. The next one, the thing that's happening is this Saturday, if they have a lot of numbers, hopefully, for it, will be another local history, family history, family history, until 4, so you've got to get that. Yeah, busy times ahead, busy times past, and they didn't sit back on their laurels and let COVID get them, so yeah, there's been a lot of things happening out there, and a lot of the things that they did put in place because of COVID are going to continue, like the setting up of libraries at the schools and what have you. That's working really well. They've managed to get a whole pile of kids now on the library membership, and they've found a use for the books that they retire that are no longer used for the shelves. They're actually been able to make them useful within that pop-up system. And if they go missing, it doesn't matter because they were going to be deleted anyway. So it's a good win all around. It's really, really good. A lot of things happening. The only other thing that, and I think it was in the estimates, was they're in the process of looking at getting some grant funding from the State Library under the structural grant money to build that bit of a building in between the SCS and the library, which would be to be able to hold various events and stuff. And to do that, they just need to have the money for a concept plan, which was built into the estimates, because it can't come out of the normal library funding that they give us. It has to be like a council contribution. So, yeah, so hopefully if we're successful with that, it won't be until next year, because they're not coming up until next year.
Contribution required, or is it just
it's just to get the concept plan done.
The concept plan after that is.
And then once the concept plan's done, the money that we get if we're successful in the library should cover the whole lot.
Okay.
So it's just that cost of getting the initial plan.
Thank you.
So, yeah, so all could be good. Looking forward for the future.
Councillor Walker, you.
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to ask Pauline, if that's all right, if you know anything about the oral history that the staff are going to be trained on how to catalogue and store oral histories.
Yeah, they're they used to have it in this is going back a few years, in like the old fish files ratings, yeah, and they're just trying to build up all of those systems so that when people come into the library looking for something, they're actually going to be able to fill all those little gaps. So yeah,
I thought it might have been, I know Matt Carter has had a few small towns where they've actually talked to people to get And I thought that would be a great thing for Warren.
That's under a different funding thing. That one that's going through our back arts is actually to do with the Indigenous community, whereas this one, is probably more wider based. So, they're tapping into whatever funding they can get to make sure that we don't miss out. So it's been good.
That's really, it's a valuable resource, that library.
Very valuable.
And expanding it where it goes and what it does, that's good. Thank you, Councillor Levy. Anything further before we put that? That being the librarian's report? No. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 6.
Might be excused.
You certainly may.
Amazing. Thank you.
Certainly. Just moving along, we'll move on to item 6, the 2021 March budget review. Someone happy to move that? There's a lot of information in there, but a lot of that would have been really, we're semi-aware of it from the budget discussion. Move with those amendments to the original budget be authorised. So Councillor Sturdy, Councillor Walker. Councillor Sturdy?
Yeah, as you've already said, we've already gone through all of this, so happy to make the recommendations. Thanks, thank you.
The only question that we did talk about, the administration, was that the money coming in for the Judges Tower Racecourse, do you want to print it out or continue? Is it here?
The money actually has come to us.
Oh, okay, right, okay.
We've got the money in, so I've got to bring it in as a grant, and I've got it as a capital expense, but where the council actually does the work, or the Jockey Club does the work, whether we pay the Jockey Club or pay the people who do the work for the Jockey Club, but the actual physical money comes from Warwick Shire Council.
Okay. So that's in relation to the Jockey Club grant that we weren't too sure which bucket whether it was going directly to the Jockey Club or whether it was coming to us. So we needed to either have it in our budget or out, and then that's answered the question, I'm sure. Thank you. Is there any further questions regarding the budget review there? It's all pretty straightforward in the end, I believe.
Just one, Mr.
Yes,
Mayor.
yes.
I had forgotten to ask this at the workshop, and then and you did invite us to come see you, but with the roads, with the recent rain and I think the general manager, you've applied for some disaster relief funding.
I applied for natural disaster declaration. That is on the way, they promised, because I've kept you informed. But then the engineering department has to go to attempt to try to get funding for any road reconstruction, restoration, and any other restoration from the relevant government departments, Transport for New South Wales for roads, and if there's anything, parks or anything like that, which we probably find there isn't. So if we've got some people, public works advisory looks after. Roads is important.
So I'm not sure. We just fix the roads after severe flooding through grants rather than budget.
Yeah, I'll attempt to try to get them to fund some flood damage, flood restoration programs. They're starting to work out how to go and do the inspections and the estimates now.
Thank you.
Yeah, so what tends to happen is that we have to do that first stage first, in terms of being declared, and then we have to go on a tour of the roads and in a formal of roads overseas to take photographs and start sending them through, etc. They have to have, this is on the ground assessment now, is it not?
I think over the time they've had inspection teams come from Transport for New South Wales to try to reduce the amount of
Yes. Yeah. And again, this is the other one. The other part of it is it's always just for reinstatement. It's never for betterment of a.
Only local Queensland got that, in 2012.
Yeah. So you just, a bigger culvert would have felt, well, it's not there. Anyway, that's an aside in this conversation. Anything else on the 2021, sorry, the March 21 budget review? No, nothing further. We'll put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to reports from Division Manager of Engineering Services. First of those being the works progress reports and regarding roads and hitting. I think this is a nice return, in my view, to having some real bit of a handle on what's actually happening, what our staff are doing in terms of maintenance and construction. So we really have a bit of an understanding of where time's being spent and what's being achieved. When we see something, say, yep, we understand that's what's occurred. So someone happy to move in regarding item 1 with the information received and noted, and we can ask for information. So Councillor Walker's moved that, seconded by Councillor Irving. Councillor Walker.
I'm happy to move the recommendation, and also just to say, I like actually the counter summary too. It's a eye-opener to the amount of traffic that goes on there, where the counters are and where it's divided into
Yeah, and that information's been collated all the time. You see the traffic counters around, it's just that we actually haven't seen them. You can, I was looking at this on my hangout as we're flying back yesterday. I think the interesting one, you just have a look at the Nevertire Bogan, whichever road. Just the traffic count's 530, which I need to rule that just for Nevertire Bogan Road 64. Yeah, that's our local road, and that's only half. There's half the amount of traffic on a local road as there is on the highways and things, and you go, that's the area where we need to see some funding to get that into the regional road. Yeah, so this really is the data that Rolly would, engineering services would have been using to say, well, this is roads of strategic importance, this is where this fits.
you try to put traffic in double streets.
Yeah. No, it's interesting information. Without data, you've got nothing. In my view, if you've got some data, you can point to it straight away and say, yep, that's what's happened. Every time I voted, you'd say this part of that would have been wheat harvest, but that extended up into February, I think it was. So, that would have been it's only a third of that time. So, we'll have ongoing traffic counts that can justify what we're asking for. Yeah. And we can see what's actually happening out on the Martha Guy Road and then onto the Warren Road where that traffic comes from and then keeps going. Anyway, look, I think this is valuable. We know what we're seeing in terms of roads, it works progress for roads, so that's very positive. Is there any further comments, questions before we put that? In that case, I put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 2 of the Division Manager Engineering Services report relating town services. Someone happy to move that? Councillor Walker. Second, Councillor Servey. Councillor Walker.
Happy to move the recommendation. Also, I see it good, Buckland's little piece he puts in that the Headport Court's got money for life. 15,000.
You didn't send it to me, did you?
Is that everyone except the mayor, I'm sure?
Okay. I'll have to say I'm unaware of that one, but thank you for drawing it to my attention. That's a positive.
I tried to read through the things to make sure there's anything we should know. Sorry about that. Must have been the plane stopped.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
Might have been John Clements coming over to take it over. Put it off.
Good news again.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
I don't know whether we applied or whether they got some help. That's probably why we just missed it.
That's great.
And we had an instance of someone on roller skates or something over on the netball courts, and that's been fenced off. Did we end up getting a sign there?
I haven't as yet, but I've got I've been asked to do I can't quite remember the wording that you had for the signage of remote supervision.
Yeah.
So that would all be addressed in that.
But if you see someone, if you see someone doing inappropriate stuff on our facilities, just saying, you know, that's not the best idea that you're doing that. You know, there's a lot of money spent on those netball boards and by a grant and 100 grand plus by council. Let's look after it. And it is 10 stops for the irrigation system to go in, et cetera, but some people just don't understand that a particular surface is for a particular reason. It's not a free fall.
Especially when we get a beautiful $400,000 back.
Exactly.
Particularly, you notice that the skate parks out here.
Yeah.
Just about.
Right. Thank you. Any further comments, questions regarding the progress report for town services?
So can I just ask one question?
Certainly.
Sorry, no, it's in the next section.
Okay, I'll wait for the councillor Brewer. Is there any further questions on item 2 of the Division Manager Engineering Services Town Services Progress Report? No, there being none, put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 3, the Works Progress Report in terms of fleet and workshop. Councillor Brewer, I'm going to look at you and perhaps you might move that. I'll move that. Thank you. Second, Councillor Servity. Councillor Brewer.
Just a question about the ute-mounted spray tank. Is that our asset? So it's under Castlereagh Macquarie County Council as the.
We'd be charging
Okay.
for repairs.
Right. That was the second part. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Councillor Brewer, for doing suggestions. Good. Yes, you comment?
No, it's just a question about, are you referring to, page
18, plant P500. I mean, it's got a plant number that looks like one of ours.
It is. The CMCC is a make of the tank, not the standard of the county council.
We don't want to charge.
And you said something about acronyms being exactly two different things for different people. I read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm worried about that.
We can be nice to them too, Darren says.
Okay.
For reasons.
For reasons, thank you. There we go. Think any further questions on the, I think gratifying, there didn't seem to be any great repair jobs. We have been, we have seen over the years that really have blown the budget as far as I can see around on this, so that's gratifying, very gratifying.
It's nice to have this information.
Oh, did you? Yes.
You'll be able to pick which machines need to be replaced.
That's right, you'll see it. Well, you see it just recurring, that same plant coming in and then again, and you start to say to yourself, well, plant committee, perhaps you having a look at this one.
I thought we got rid of that Mack truck. I'm actually quite fond of it, but it's a museum piece. I'm sure we'll get rid of it.
I bought it.
There you go. There you go.
And that old Samsung 28 tonne that survived as well. Well and truly worthwhile buying big excavators if you're going to buy them. Yeah. Couldn't believe it was still going for a while.
There you go. So it fits right in, doesn't it? So easily. The equipment is familiar with.
Well, we don't really like buying second hand.
No.
That Mack truck is on the list for replacement, and without being completely positive, I thought we had. But anyway, the next plant committee meeting is next month, so we'll.
One of the very good discussions I'll be having with the engineer before the plant committee. When he comes back from holidays.
No, very good. Anything further on the item 3, the works progress reports on regarding fleet and the workshop itself?
Just, Mr. Mayor, what is going to happen in roads and town services is we'll see some more maintenance budgets. It's only capital budgets at the moment. So next one it'll just expand to show so you see what's happening maintenance wise on roads, regional roads, local roads. Same with water, town water supplies and sewage and stuff. Just to see some budgetary stuff. Not everything, but the main ones.
Yep.
Anything further? Item 3? Put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to final item 4, for the, in regards to the Division of Engineering Services reports, the State Highway Road Maintenance Council contract is something that we chose not to be part of, and now we resolved the last council or 2 council meetings ago to start to reopen the negotiations, the conversation. Someone happy to move the recommendation, just noting where we are. Thank you, Councillor Brewer. Councillor Sturdy. Councillor Brewer.
I wonder if the general manager can cut through some of that text there and just tell us how it's going. It looks to me that we have to have those pre-qualifications that we have had in the past, so they should just be formalities.
A little bit of work, including making sure the staff are up to scratch too, training-wise. But pre-qual can be a little bit complicated, followed by that audit. But if done right and managed right, can be very helpful to the bottom line.
Indeed, yeah. Any feel for time frame to get this back on? Obviously, they appear to be relatively positive about it.
The way the engineer wants to, he wants to be able to try to take advantage of some major projects that could be coming along, reconstruction-wise. I don't know whether he's trying to aim for a 30th of June almost ready to roll, but certainly he'd want to be early into the next financial year, and not have to wait another year.
Fair enough.
I think the interesting thing that I know, this was on page 23 in my paper copy here, is that Cambridgeshire Council has had similar audit burdens based on them. And I understand that they've never ceased to be a roads maintenance council contractor, have they? Does anyone know? Yeah, so I think we're collectively having to jump. So I think we're on, when I'm coming to Council Brewery, probably on a similar footing, and they're showing interest, Council New South Wales are showing interest in us coming back on board. So.
And look, I hope that if they want to come and have a look at the roads that we do make, our guys do a cracking job on the roads. They're fantastic. That old Warren Road segment that's just been completed up there towards Enoona is fantastic. It's really, really good. So certainly the quality of the roads we make is not going to hold us back.
You know, we'll let that be an ongoing conversation with General Manager and Engineering Services and Division Manager Engineering Services, and see how it goes. Councillor Walker.
Can you just remind me why we decided not to take up the contract?
Because of the potential litigation if something came unstuck. And we were advised at that time by the General Manager of the Council, Upper Hunter, it had a $5 million liability as a result of road construction, non-construction properly, or I've forgotten the details, Councillor Walker, but the advice was it became too onerous on us. The other part of the problem in the contract was that you couldn't make a profit. So what's the point of doing the work if you're not going to make some sort of profit? So I think that sort of negotiation, we need to understand exactly how much the letter of the law applies. Previous General Manager was very much concerned that if the letter of the law applied, you'd be doing things for absolutely nothing.
So those conditions would still apply possibly until you work out something with TF New Zealand?
I'd have to just defer to the General Manager.
We don't call it profit, you know.
No, but I've just heard a similar story that there was a road built recently and the Liverpool Plains and it fell to pieces, and the local council is up for a lot of money because no one's putting their hand and saying, I'm blamed for I can't quite pinpoint who's to blame. I'm just wondering if that is a consideration moving ahead with this.
Risk management, but everyone around the room realises that the one thing that we actually are good at is road reconstruction and maintenance. But there is some risk management you have to take, and way back, there was actually purposely funds set aside a long time ago to actually cover some extraordinary things that never happened. We didn't go and spend the money, the big gaps that were there in the jobs, until we voluntarily knew that everything was right. We moved on and moved on and moved on, and the money get bigger and bigger, and we weren't allowed to go down and spend all of it for that same thing. So you have to start somewhere. We start off with, I think, that we actually can go and build and maintain roads, and take a little bit of risk, and then help all our work being efficient. Meaning you just got a larger pool to be working, that makes it efficient. You actually can do some work on the state highway and head up your road if you're slashing or something like that. You haven't wasted someone driving out an hour to go and do it. You've actually done some work on the state highway at the same time, and then gone and done some roads off, little things like that.
So as you move forward, if you were to to try and get the contract, would you do what you did years ago and just have a big reserve just in?
I think you'd want it, wouldn't you?
Well, there's two avenues with that. I mean, we can actually take out insurance for contract management type insurance, right specific, which we have money set aside for possible insurance claims. And we're talking at the moment at the maintenance, so there's not a lot of discussion at this stage going to get into the work order. But what my feelings were, if we got into a big thing, is to make sure that we've got our costings right first. And that's the biggest thing, is that you shouldn't then, work the worst case scenario that you might have 2 week or 3 week wet weather that you might have to, might cost a little bit, but I think as long as it's managed well and we get a handle on the estimate that we give, transport shouldn't be a problem. And we build in a bit of risk money as well.
You're allowed to have risk money.
And if I may say two things, I think our engineer is an excellent road builder, that's my personal opinion, I'm no expert, but that area outside of Millimore has been just a nightmare for 1,000 years. And I think in the past we've spec'd that up to do it properly, and the Roads and Maritime at the time, it just said, look, it's just way too expensive. And you have a look at it now, it's exactly the way it was for the last 20 years, I guess. But on the point of profit, another term for profit would be unused contingency, I think, and if that's scoped properly and funded accurately, and you can win on unused scope, I think. So I think we'll be right. And Rowley, to be honest, was not at all happy with our decision when we did make that call, and he backed himself to be able to mitigate the risk himself by doing a good job, I think. So he was pretty disappointed.
Okay. I think I was remiss, but we do need to separate the two parts of it. This is road maintenance council contract, so it's maintenance as opposed to construction, where the big risk is sits in construction, obviously. So, I think we endorsed it. Well, we already have a resolution that we re-engage with Transport for New South Wales and get this process underway. So let's just continue on.
And certainly seems like it's moving forward.
Yeah.
Any further on item 4, Division Main Engineering Services Report? Then nothing further. Put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to reports of the Manager of Health and Development, who is in apology today. The first of those being the development application. There are nil, so just someone happy to move that for completeness. Thank you, Councillor Sturdy, Councillor Irving. Put that. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 2, regarding the works progress report. So we'll see these coming through in every area of council operation, so that they pertain to whichever area they belong, rather than having an endless stream. We sort of focus on one area of work and works and go from there. So is that someone happy to move the recommendation information received and noted
along in the area of Manchuria's health and development science portfolio. Thank you, Councillor Sergi. Second, Councillor Irving. Councillor Sergi.
Yeah, well, she's not going to answer any questions. I particularly don't have any, so I'm just happy to move that recommendation.
We can comment on one thing, Mr. Mayor, just the further tenders are closed for the waste.
Okay.
Waste on page 4. The report will be going to the May council meeting. Tenders received, no one's really happy about what we've received. We'll be probably investigating, part of the analysis report will be working out whether council staff and subcontractors can actually go and do the job ourselves for the budget.
So the budgets that are, the tenders that are coming in are excessive to what?
Excessive. Excessive.
Did you get them? Did you get them?
Not many. And the director says that that description is an understatement.
I thought it might be.
It's something I think we should. I thought there was moves afoot a long time ago. We were going to go and do it ourselves anyway. Is there some?
There was talk of it.
Yeah. So it was considered, that's for sure, but and then it was timing and whether we had people just at that time to do things and et cetera, but and then decided to go to tender, and now that's proving. Yeah. So hopefully we'll come back to probably the original proposal.
So between the manager, health and government services, and town services manager, who the project team putting it together, there's a waste committee as well, but they're only just used for advisory stuff. But I mean, the tender will go straight to the council with this advice to actually the assessment trying to prove that it can be done in-house.
Do you have a waste meeting on, wasn't it, 12th of May?
Well, I think we'll send you a report, and we really don't have much more to discuss at this point.
It's on hold until such time as we get the money.
Anything further then on the works progress report in the area of health and development? Anything further? With that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Item 3, secondary dwellings in rural zones.
Clarification,
I'll give you that last trying to read this.
Yes.
So I'm happy to move for clarification.
Yeah. Well, we have to move some.
Yeah.
We can move a recommendation, or we can. Yes, I think we can do that and then request further information, and then we have to modify it after that if we have a differing view. So I think we just. It's all right, move the recommendation, but then we need some clarity, and then we can amend the recommendation if we need to. So moving it, sorry, Councillor Sturdy.
Yeah.
Seconded, Councillor Walker. Councillor Sturdy.
As I said, when I read a lot of this development stuff, I just find it a wee bit over my, as I used to say in my old job, it's above my pay grade. It just doesn't make an awful lot of sense. I mean, I read it 3 or 4 times and I still can't get what I'm trying to get out of it. So if it can be explained in plain layman's terms, it would be lovely.
we'll have it done.
I think the biggest issue is in rural, what does it mean? Does it mean the rural 1,000 acre that you can't, 1,000 hectare that you can't subdivide, or does that mean large like rural residential? I mean, that's not in this. For me to understand either, Councillor Sergi, what we're actually talking about.
Do we need?
But it says secondary dwellings in rural zones. So it's just, we're talking about farmland only. And that provides some clarity then. Thank you.
I'd rather that we defer it to another council meeting, had the manager for health and development actually explain to us why we need to have this in the first place and what the implications are of getting this wrong. Because if you look at some of the farm places with jackaroo huts and these sorts of things, it just means that you know, who's excluded, who does it affect? And I don't think we need to put this today, not without.
The main meeting is the last chance. So we do have another chance, because it's the 30th of May is the deadline to provide advice to the department of what we want to do. And
Maybe we need a workshop or something, some sort of presentation, because it seems, it seems odd that we have to make a call on something we don't
I mean,
know about.
we talked on the way back from, as telephone coverage was allowed, to the Management Health and Development last night, because I the very same conversations I think we're all having. What are the implications? What does it mean? What are we trying to actually achieve out of this? You know, and I couldn't, you know, my view, you know, the minimum distance should be whatever the biggest extremity is. You know, if you have a house and you want to build a worker's cottage, you can put it as far away as you like.
Or as close as you like. I mean, why they?
Why being prescriptive? Yeah, which I didn't understand. The other thing is, okay, what happens if someone has an old house in which they're living, they want to build a new house, but they can put it where, and they should be entitled to put it wherever they like, and does that, then the old house become the secondary dwelling, or does that new house then has to be less than 75% of the old house in terms of footprint? You know, there's too many, in my view.
Well, there's things like granny's flats and things like that people might want to do, and it's, yeah.
I'm not grasping it at all, unlike you, Councillor Sergi, I'm not grasping at all what the intent is exactly. I'm more than happy to accept what do we do? And
between the seconder and the
you can withdraw it.
You can actually say exactly that. The matter be deferred to the May council meeting where further advice to be provided by the Management Health and Development Service.
Yep.
So we need a workshop in between?
Oh, mate, we could have had a go. She tried to, and she provided some information last night to us, but we could have had a go, but it would be better if it came from her after she's done a little bit more research and added to the report if she needs to.
So can I just ask, so it's New South Wales who is bringing up this concern
New South Wales State Environmental Planning Policy.
for the LEP?
Yeah,
Housing State Environment Planning for the SEP.
that's all the steps.
And I'm not sure why they have to have a maximum size on the building.
Yeah, that's,
Just some clarification, Part A already is in our local environmental plan. So on the recommendation 5.5, Part A already is there. There is no B. Right, so in our document, we're actually already telling people that your dwelling for a secondary dwelling on land in rural zones is in accordance with A already. So they don't actually have telling about B.
Is it A1 or?
The whole of A. Oh, mate. Don't forget it's total floor area of the dwelling, excluding any area used for parking, must not exceed whichever of the following is the greater. Right, so if you've got a 300 square metre homestead house, your secondary dwelling can be 75% of that 300 square metre.
But why?
A bit dictative, aren't they?
exactly. I think it's too restrictive. I think our environmental local LEP plan is wrong, if that's the case. We need to revisit.
But have we got time to do that?
Oh, you can have a go. You can have a go.
Not this part. No, the LEP, I think Councillor Wall was speaking on. Is that what you?
Next year that might get some review. So what the motion was is yeah, thank you.
Just on a bit, if you look at your LEP, this is LEP next year, this is already in it, can you change it next year? Is this holding for the whole, how long does this hold for the, whatever decision you come to?
I'm sure.
Until you reviewed it again.
Yeah.
Which is next.
2022 is the review year for the LEP.
But you could review this
Again.
Yeah, okay.
So I think what we ended with the Councillor Sergi and who seconded? Sorry, Councillor Walker was it? Yeah. That the matter be deferred, so item 3 the manager of health and development, item 3, we referred to the May 2021 council meeting, where the manager of health and development can provide further information. I would also like to say that information be provided before that meeting. We give time for some consideration of that.
Because other clause is optional.
Yep. Hang on, just looking. Sorry, Councillor, now, yes.
That's all right, I've got that impression through the council ruling that, it says that councils, it has been requested that council nominate its preferred size, and it says, yeah, so we are also, says that we can propose, we can make a proposal on it, so maybe it's not set, there's a flexibility there, is that what?
You can put in the.
So maybe more discussion, yeah, would be handy.
Actually, I don't think we want to rush this.
There's no need, but I'm just saying that current RDP has already got a part A in there.
Okay, so Councillor Sturdy and Councillor, are you happy with that on the screen there, the motion as that stands? Yep. Is there any further comments, questions before we put that? Any further, we'll put that, all those in favour? Against? Carried. Moving on to item 4, the Manager of Health and Development report regarding the new Waste Depot and future gazetted public holidays. Someone had to do Councillor Sturdy, this is in your area, thank you. A second, Councillor Walker. Councillor Sturdy.
Again, I had a read through this and I think it must have been just getting late in the night because
Right at the end, the last one was.
I must have been, yeah.
Up to page 150, whatever it was.
I think it all makes sense.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong with that. I think it all makes sense, and I honestly don't think there's anything that needs to probably change in the way the days are set up.
Yep.
Other than that we make sure that, as well as putting it out to the general public, that you just send an email through to the whole council. Just so that we're all aware, because we will get questions, and sometimes, I mean, personally, if I don't get reception at home, my Facebook and all that is gone.
So these are the gazetted public holidays situations. So what happened?
It should be all good.
So what happened? What precipitated this was that there was a view that UMR Waste Depot would be closed on Easter Saturday and Monday. So that was a 4-day, and I spoke with the general manager when I became aware of that occurring, and we just needed to clarify what days it was and wasn't open. The other, a little bit annoying thing is on the front gate it says chip closed on Christmas Day and New Year's Day, it's the only days, and then have it not open at all over Easter was, in my view, something that, well, it didn't happen in the end, but there wasn't there wasn't a notice in the paper to even say that was a possibility. So I think we would have come badly unstuck without some sort of intervention, and thankfully the general manager was able to do something in that space very quickly, and I think that was a good result. But what then came out of that is we really need to be very clear about what days it is and isn't open, and part of the arrangement to going to the arrangement we have gone to was that it would be open on various days with the work arrangement that was set up. So this is just some clarity for it. We know exactly where we are for the next 12 months plus, and it's there because everyone's aware.
Does this actually go out with the rate notices? Because it would probably be handy if it was just a separate one-page survey.
In future newsletters.
Yeah, just something that people can stick to the fridge so that they can see it at a glance.
So it will be closed this Sunday for Anzac Day.
Yes.
So we need, and I'm still late for this newspaper.
No, the website, Facebook, one of the jobs that Marianne was doing from home was organising all that.
Okay.
And also, there are signs located to say that it's closed, and you used to put one over the levy, you know.
It says closed due to fire.
Oh, you mentioned it earlier. Can we
Signage for closure, 3 locations or 4?
Anyway.
One at
make sure that
Nevertire.
it's being used also?
Rangsgate is taking responsibility, they have those signs sorted so they actually say the appropriate thing. Yep.
Thank you.
I think we have, as I said earlier, we have done a temporary cover up of the part that says closed due to fire, or I can't remember the other one was flooding or something like that. So that's been covered for now.
So, I think we just, and the public needs to be aware that it'll be closed on Sunday, Anzac Day,
And what's contained within the report, Mr Mayor, is what it's saying is that we want to provide a service, but knowing some of that service costs a little bit of money too. There are some days that are pretty applicable that we kind of, you know, we decided to try to open it for the 3 days of Easter because everybody was doing their lawns, and it was pretty well used for those 3 days. But next time, it's 2 out of the 4 days that it's closed. Easter Monday and the main 2 days of Easter, it's closed.
Very good. Any further comments, questions on that?
Just
Councillor
one
Sleathers?
comment, and I have wrote it before. If you're doing the sign out at Nevertire, make sure you do it near the electrical substation, because if it's done near the crossroads, the people who actually live in Nevertire,
Don't see it.
at the high ends, they don't see it, because we don't go up and down, we go out the back of it. You need to make sure, it's just where people can actually see that live in town.
Fair comment.
It's a minor.
Fair comment.
They can come into town and spend lots of money in wine.
And then
And dragging the trailer.
they'll be too upset that they haven't been able to do what they wanted. Anything further on item 4? No, nothing further. We'll put that. All those in favour? Against carried. Oh, righto. We have no motion, no motion or questions regarding those. We know, in my view, no matters of urgency. No confidential matters. We can conclude the meeting and thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Walker.
Just can I nip in quickly?
Yes.
Is that all right?
It depends. There is no space in the agenda to, you can have we can close the meeting and you can ask a question, if that's what you'd like to do. I think is that because it's not really on the agenda now, we don't have questions. No. Okay, that being the case, we'll close the meeting. Thank you very much.